Odin's brother is sealed deep in the bottom of the Pacific Ocean? It's kind of weird to say this. If I remember correctly, Odin's elder brother, the big snake Kuul, is a guy with ambitions comparable to his own father, God King Bor. Odin also inherited the ambition of his father, God King Bor, but he was able to properly put away his own ambition, even if he hung upside down under the Tree of Life for 10 days and 10 nights. But the big snake Kur is different. He is ambitious, tyrannical, and always wants to conquer everything. It can be seen from the position of God, because he is the famous God of Fear. If it is said that Odin started to collect infinite gems in order to rule the universe, but he reigned in the final precipice and stopped his ambition. If it were the big snake Kur, I'm afraid he would have collected all 6 infinite gems, snapped his fingers, and let the life of the entire universe kneel at his feet. The big event about the big snake Kuul in the comics is the event of the 8 great skyhammers. Definitely, this matter has nothing to do with Su. At least, according to the Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One after examining the seal. The seal is still relatively strong now. Even if Odin dies, the big snake Kur will not wake up. Then you'll be fine. After emerging from the bottom of the sea, the Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One left and Su Che was back on the beach. After watching Su Che chatting with the bald woman for a while, the two plunged into the bottom of the sea together. Everyone was still a little worried, especially Wanda was worried and wanted to follow up to the bottom of the sea to see. Only stopped by Natasha Romanoff. After Su Che returned from the bottom of the sea, everyone finally calmed down. Listening to Su Che talking about the tsunami just now, they realized that the tsunami just now was caused by someone who wanted to attack. It was just scared away by the sudden appearance of Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One. And then, it's not fair. Looking sideways at Su Che, Tony Stark spread his hands and said, "Dude, I won't hide any secrets from you. I've told you everything including the recent embarrassing thing that happened to me. So, you can't just say one name and not tell me the rest. It's unfair." Kong Mang, that's magic. No one is not curious about magic. And maybe if I can understand the principles of those magics, maybe I can hijack the magic on my armor. Speaking of this, Tony Stark immediately turned his head to look at Natasha Romanoff and Pepper. You are also very curious about magic, right? Not curious. Seeing Tony's eyes, Peebo immediately shook his head. The reason why I came with you is because you were in a particularly bad mood during this time. I was worried about what might happen, so I came with you, Sisu. But now I see that your mood has stabilized, and you are not willing to tell me, as a girlfriend, why you are like this. Then I think I should go back and deal with Stark Industries. After all, compared to magic, I am more used to dealing with things in reality. Hearing what Peebo said, Natasha Romanoff on the side also smiled. As long as Su knows, he won't harm me anyway. If I need to know, then he will definitely tell me. Tisk. Seeing the attitudes of the two ladies, Tony Stark looked at Sheeta and Pietro again. Well, I'm actually not that curious. Magician, isn't that just a juggler? There are many in the circus. And if the show is good, maybe I won't hesitate to buy a few tickets. Shrugging his shoulders, Tony Stark was playing his tongue-in-cheek nature. On the other hand, several people laughed when they heard Tony's words. Nah, it looks like our vacation is coming to an end. Turning his head and glanced at the calm sea, Su Che then said to the crowd, maybe we should go back. I sort of figured it out. The guy who blew up Steve's apartment and me, and Dr. Banner, including today's tsunami. He's definitely coming after us Avengers guys. Perhaps we should gather to discuss how to solve this matter. Having said that, Su Che looked at Tony Stark. Perhaps we should find a way to attract him. Alright. Hearing what Su Che said, Tony Stark naturally had no problem. I don't have any complaints, although my vacation has just begun and ended. Seeing that everyone had no objection, Natasha Romanoff stood up and said, then pack up your things and prepare to leave. I'll start the Quinjet fighter jet. After speaking, Natasha Romanoff turned and left. Good guy. Looking at Natasha Romanoff's back, Tony Stark gave Su Che a thumbs up. Those who travel with a Quinjet fighter jet to relax, you are the first. 2 hours later, inside S.H.I.E.L.D., Sue and Natasha Romanoff are on their way home. Looking at Nick Fury, who couldn't hide a trace of fatigue on his face, but was in a surprisingly good state of mind. Maria Hill reports. He obviously hadn't really rested much for more than half a month, but he was excited because he completely wiped out S.H.I.E.L.D. Hydra. Maria Hill no longer knows how to evaluate Nick Fury in front of her. Especially now that S.H.I.E.L.D. has lost more than half of its power, and it is almost half destroyed at a speed visible to the naked eye. But Hill can feel the high spirits from Nick Fury. Perhaps, Nick Fury was born to be a fighter. The peaceful S.H.I.E.L.D. life before could not inspire his fighting mentality. They're back. That's just right. Let them handle the affairs of Xichang Town.
After hearing from Hill that Su Che and the others had returned, Nick Fury directly opened the drawer and took out a document and threw it on the table.
Now the main goal of S.H.I.E.L.D. is to restore the energy of a month ago. For supernatural events like Westview Town, it's best to let the Avengers members do it. We in the sky and the earth can't get in, but they should have a way. Having said that, Nick Fury looked up at Hill. How's Phil Coulson going? According to that special department, Phil Coulson was in a medical condition prior to his death that was eligible for resurrection. So they're working on the Phil Coulson resurrection with Project Tahiti. It may not be long before Phil Coulson will be resurrected. With that said, Maria Hill looked at Nick Fury with some concern. However, you really need to take a good rest, otherwise your body won't be able to bear it. More than half a month has passed since the Battle of New York. Normally speaking, the general things have slowly dissipated after more than half a month. But after all, this is the first time that the Earth has experienced the invasion of aliens, and a large number of superheroes suddenly appeared around ordinary people. So the heat of this matter has hardly subsided.
Here at the Stark Industrial Building, many people can be seen gathering here to check in every day.
As the alien invasion, the first battlefield where superheroes appear always attracts countless people. This led to the slow restoration of the appearance of the Stark Industrial Building. Originally, the words Stark Industries were printed on the building, and under the authorization of Tony Stark, it became a separate A symbolizing Avengers. With a lot of people, Avengers member 043 is destined not to be able to appear in Su Che's coffee shop as usual. After all, this will attract countless people to come and watch, take pictures and ask for autographs and the like. The members of the Avengers Alliance are counted as one, and no one wants to be watched by the crowd. So, the meeting place becomes the Avengers Alliance base. Oh, and it's worth mentioning though that Stark Industries was the first battleground in the Battle of New York. But Su Che's Tahualan Cafe has not been affected in any way. The glass didn't even break, can you believe it? This is thanks to Selena pulling down the anti-theft shutters on the glass windows and doors after getting everyone off work. So these days, Tahualan Cafe's business is very good. This made Tony constantly mutter in front of Su Che that he would have brought those Chitori into the Tahualan Cafe if he knew it earlier, and then a fight broke out. But then again, Thor, why are you back all of a sudden? Looking at Thor sitting on the sofa, Tony Stark took a sip of coffee. If you don't drink it in a coffee shop, it really doesn't taste that way. Sue, I seriously doubt that you will use instant coffee to deal with us. Tisk. The owner of Tenten Cafe actually used instant coffee to entertain the partners who lived and died with him, really. Listening to Tony Stark deliberately finding fault, everyone sitting on the sofa in a circle suddenly laughed. Come on Tony. I ground the coffee beans and I brew them fresh, so how could it be Sue serving us instant coffee? Steve on the side looked at Tony and said with a smile. Oh, so you two are together now? Turning to look at Steve, Tony Stark scoffed. Have to. Seeing Tony's piercing eyes, Steve raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. During this period including Tony's visit to Sue, Steve knew about it. But the only thing I don't understand is that I always feel that Tony is targeting himself these days. Although there is no malicious targeting, it is more like, angry? It seems that I didn't do anything to make Tony so angry. Come on Tony, coffee is the same coffee, but you want to be cheered by ordinary people.
Looking at Tony, Su Che spread his hands and said, however, it's best for us people not to appear in front of those ordinary people for the time being, at least not at this point in time.
Otherwise, it is easy to cause large-scale spectators. If there is a blockage and stampede accident, it will be bad.
After all, our current enthusiasm is here. I heard from Selena that my coffee shop is overcrowded almost every day, and there are not even enough seats.
Hearing Su Che's words, Tony Stark made a cut, then picked up his coffee and took a sip. We saved the world, shouldn't we be applauded? Fortunately, I am still dressed very handsomely today, even the pen for signature is ready. After speaking, Tony Stark looked at Thor and said, "Hey, handsome boy, you haven't answered my question yet. Why have you been here? Are you done with your Asgard business?" Facing Tony's question, Thor held a beer and smiled and said, "With my father and Queen Mother here, I don't have anything to deal with in Asgard."
But Loki escaped. Loki escaped. Listening to Thor's words, Barton, who was sitting beside him, frowned and said, "Is it so easy to break out of your Asgard prison?"
Not really. Asgard's prison is still very strong, and the measures to prevent escape are still very strong.
However, it was my mother who let Loki go. Seeing everyone's eyes on him, Thor felt a little embarrassed. "Everyone, I also know that Loki has caused a very bad impact on the earth. In fact, I am also very angry.
However, my father did not put him in prison, but let him reflect in his own residence. And then a few days later, my mother gave the space gem to Loki and told him to go. Sorry, I don't know exactly why. I asked my mother, but she said, it's all for Asgard." Having said that, Thor turned his head to look at Suche, with a hint of apology in his tone. Mother said that Loki will appear on Earth again, but in another identity, but this time it will definitely not cause any harm to Earth. Disaster. Hope so. Facing Thor's words, Dr. Banner nodded slightly. About why Queen Frigg chose to let Loki go. And why didn't Odin imprison Loki in Prison C in Asgard like in the original plot? Suche guessed that it was probably because of the Black Gold Diary. But what exactly happened? I have never been to Asgard, and I have never met the Queen. So I don't know much about it. But it's clear that Thor's last words were speaking to himself. That is to say, when Loki reappears on the Earth with another identity, there will be a relationship with himself? Forget it. I'm not a parent. The Queen of Asgard can't let me help take care of the children. Tisk. Another child over 1500 years old. By the way, guys, S.H.I.E.L.D. needs us for something.
Looking at the silent crowd, Natasha Romanoff, who was sitting next to Suche, said, "After we came back from the small island, Yangshu sent me a piece of information. A piece of information about the 10 buildings named Westmost Ying."
Standing up, Natasha Romanoff walked to a table beside her, and handed the printed information to everyone. This small town called Westview Town was originally a very ordinary town. But some time ago, Zijing Town suddenly changed. Many residents of the original small town slept soundly at home that night, but they appeared outside the small town en masse the next day. I slept at home that night, but when I woke up the next morning, I found it was outside Westview Town. Hearing Natasha Romanoff's words, Steve looked at the information in his hand. The information shows that Westview Town has a total population of 1,352 people, which is considered a typical small town. These 1,350 people, no one found out how they appeared outside the town. Facing Steve's inquiry, Natasha Romanoff shrugged his shoulders. This is the strangest part. You must know that many people actually have the habit of staying up late, including me. Few people fall asleep on time at 8 o'clock every night, let alone 1,352 people choose to fall asleep at 8 o'clock in the evening at the same time. But the night before the incident happened, everyone in Zijing Town, including pets, chose to fall asleep at 8 o'clock that night. In their words, they don't know exactly what happened that night. I only know that when it was 8 o'clock in the evening, everyone was very tired. Listening to what Natasha Romanoff said here, Tony Stark on the side frowned and said, "Some kind of program. It's like setting an alarm clock, and then the alarm clock will ring at 8 o'clock in the evening on time." That's right. Looking at Tony Stark, Natasha Romanoff nodded. That's true, but the residents of Westview Town are people after all, not a program on a computer. Could it be magic? Dr. Banner, who was always silent on the side, suddenly asked, "If it's some kind of magic, maybe we can do something like this. Like the guy who hit me up and made me a Hulk before the Battle of New York. Isn't he using that magic to make Hulk go berserk? This possibility cannot be ruled out." Listening to Dr. Banner's words, Hawkeye Barton nodded. I still remember the scene of being controlled by Loki. So, those residents of Westview Town are likely to be controlled by magic as well. Having said that, everyone turned their attention to Suzu. In terms of magic, in the entire Avengers alliance, it seems that Suche has the most say. After all, Lu Ji wanted to use the psychic scepter to control people like himself. If it wasn't for Su's mind magic, the battle for New York would have been Loki leading Captain America and the rest of the Avengers alliance plus Chitauri. Let's go to war with Su Che. The probability of such a thing is high. Seeing the eyes of everyone looking at him, Su Che nodded. At least, I can easily block the perception of all the residents of Westview Town by using psychic magic. Even let them fall asleep without knowing it, and let them walk outside Westview Town without knowing it. Turning to look at Natasha Romanoff. Anything else? Definitely. Listening to Su Che's inquiry, Natasha Romanoff continued. Another point is that Westview Town is now completely closed. Yes, it is closed. It's as if there is an invisible wall covering Zijing Town.
Looking at Zijing Town from the outside, you can see a gray area of AA, your best friend, and you can't see what happened inside Zijing Town.
After S.H.I.E.L.D. received the news, it immediately sent the agent closest to Zijing Town to investigate. They've tried many methods, and they can't get in either through the air or underground. Even missiles can't blow up this layer of gray insulating material. Hearing what Natasha Romanoff said, Su Che pondered. It should be a barrier of some kind of magic secret technique, using magic energy to create a barrier that wraps the entire Westview Town, making it inaccessible from any direction. There is no way to open the isolation barrier. As he said that, Su Che looked at the crowd and said, "Everyone, it seems that what we are going to face this time is a secret technique magician or a magician whose strength is unknown. And this magician is most likely the guy who attacked us. Although I don't know why this guy wants to put a barrier on Zijing Town, or what he wants to do. But everyone, it's time for us to move, no problem." Hearing Su Che's words, everyone nodded without hesitation. Tony Stark also got up and said, "I'm going to take the latest Mark 20 with me. Fortunately, I'm smart, and I have placed a lot of armor in our Avengers Alliance base." Watching Tony Stark get up, Natasha Romanoff took out $3,000 from his pocket with a strange expression and handed it to Thor. "This is what Nick Fury sent to my account this morning and asked me to hand it over to you." Looking at the stack of banknotes handed over by Natasha Romanoff, Thor's eyes lit up. "So, are there any perks for collective actions like this? Do they have any?" Even though he said so, Thor took the stack of banknotes without any politeness, and then smiled and took out a money and wrapped it in. "I don't know where I bought this product, but there is actually a wallet with a bunny pattern." Watching Thor take the money without any hesitation, and happily put the money in. The other members of the Avengers Alliance all have weird expressions. I don't know why, but I just look at Thor's action of taking money with a bright smile. No matter what he does, he is very manly, which is very suitable for these people's appetite. There is always such a slight sense of disobedience. But Thor didn't care so much. He put the money in his wallet and put it in his pocket with a smile. I didn't forget to pat it with my hands, with a satisfied look on my face. Money is a good thing. At least if he had money, he would be able to visit the whole world and tell Doris himself in front of her tombstone. How beautiful is this world that she has never had the chance to see. This is her last wish, and I must fulfill it for her. Although you can fly with a hammer, you have to travel around the world from the perspective of an ordinary person like Doris. This is the biggest insistence in Thor's heart. "Okay everyone, get ready. Half an hour later, we will leave on time." Seeing everyone's expressions, Su clapped his hands and said to them. Looking at the people who got up and started to prepare, Steve walked up to Su Che and said softly, "Su, I think we need to talk." "No problem." Seeing Steve's serious expression, Su Che got up and left with Steve. Instead, Natasha Romanoff took a look at Thor, and then went back to her villa room to change clothes. Just that little bunny pattern, and also with a hint of frayed wallet. Others don't know it, but I know it myself. That's the wallet that Medusa Doris once used. Tisk, it's been so long and Thor hasn't come out yet. It really deserves to be Medusa who likes to play with people's hearts. Poor Thor. In the garden. Tony is out of sorts these days. Holding the shield and looking at Su Che, Steve said helplessly, "I don't know exactly what happened, but it's obviously related to S.H.I.E.L.D. Since the last time he helped me deal with the S.H.I.E.L.D. matter, the whole mood has become very wrong." Speaking of this, Steve smiled wryly, and even his attitude towards me has become complicated. Taking a long breath, Steve Rogers looked at Su Che and said with a smile, "According to the relationship between the three of us, if this matter is related to me, then Tony will definitely tell you. So, man, what's going on?" If it's because he needs help, then you know I'm not going to stand by and do nothing. Seeing Steve's sincere tone, Su Che stretched out his hand to take Steve's shield and patted it. It has something to do with it. Is it related to shield? Some didn't understand what Su Che meant. Steve just wanted to ask. But he saw Su Che casually throwing the shield out. The circular shield spins rapidly in the air and draws a perfect arc. Then it flew back, very inconsistent with the laws of physics, and Su Che caught it with one hand and handed it back to Steve. I do know why Tony is like this, but I'm not sure you want to know this news. I think, no matter what the news is, I can bear it. Taking the shield handed over by Su Che, Steve laughed. There is nothing worse than being frozen for nearly 70 years, right? Who knows? Looking at the confident Steve, Su Che shrugged his shoulders. Wow. What are you two talking about? Are you talking bad about me again? Wearing armor and landing in front of the two, Tony Stark opened the mask and looked at Su Che and Steve. We're talking about your mood swings these days. Looking at Tony flying over, Steve said seriously, no matter what happens, Tony, I just want you to know that I'm on your side. Wow. It's really full of ridicule. Facing Steve's sincerity, Tony Stark curled his lips, and then looked at Su Che. Don't look at me, I didn't say it. After all, I think you should tell Steve about this. Spreading his hands and taking a step back, Su Che looked at Tony and smiled. Come on, after he knows the news, he will definitely not be on my side, although what he said is very nice now. Hearing what Tony said, Steve frowned. What is it that makes you think this way? Want to know? Asking Steve back, Tony Stark raised his eyebrows slightly. Okay, I will tell you after the Westview Town incident is over. I want to see if you, who know the truth of the matter, will stand by my side as you said. Don't look at me. Seeing Steve looking at himself inexplicably, Su Che waved his hand. I don't participate in this matter, after all you two are my friends. I don't want to get sidetracked. Listening to what Su Che and Tony said, although Steve didn't know exactly what happened. But he could only smile wryly and shook his head. Well, I always feel that this will be a dilemma. Hey boys, you're almost done talking. Looking at the three people standing together in a triangle, Natasha Romanoff, who had changed his clothes, came over. If the three big boys are talking about the same, then maybe we should start. I'm okay. Responding to Natasha Romanoff's words first, Su Che walked directly towards the Quinjet fighter. Don't think about it. Su didn't let you know about this matter because he didn't want to see you in a dilemma. As for me, well, I know exactly what choice you're going to make, but Steve, sometimes I really want to punch you. Raising the fist of the battle armor and hammering at Steve, Tony Stark then walked towards the Quinjet fighter. Oh, it's really. Looking at the shield in his hands, Steve Rogers took a deep breath and looked up at the sun. Squeezed out. Definitely impossible. Whether it's Su Che or Tony, Steve can feel that they really don't want to make things difficult for themselves. But, as the person concerned, Steve still wants to know what happened.
Shield. Is it related to Howard back then? It can't be related to Peggy, who fired several times at herself after picking up the shield.
Probably not. Zijing Town was originally a peaceful town. At this moment, Xichang Town is surrounded by a security cordon. On the main road leading to Westview Town, many men in black and a few RVs stood here. Looking down from the Kun-style fighter jet, the original Zijing Town has been shrouded in something like an enchantment at this moment. It was impossible to see the interior of Zijing Town clearly. After the Quinjet fighter landed, several SHIELD agents in black suits walked over. Sir. Looking at Natasha Romanoff and others, the leading SHIELD agent in a suit greeted him with great respect. Fourth level agent. Looking at the nameplate of the leading agent, Natasha Romanoff reached out and took off the nameplate. Remember, although there are no hard and fast rules, when the SHIELD agent goes out to perform tasks. Absolutely no nameplates of any kind. If you need to reveal your identity, you can use a certificate or a business card. Yes, sir. Listening to Natasha Romanoff's words, the passer-by agent immediately nodded. Several SHIELD agents who went with them also took off the nameplates related to the Shen SHIELD. Because there are no hard and fast rules, and everyone who joins SHIELD will be issued nameplates and ID card shops. So this is not a mistake of this passer-by agent. It's just because I just came out of the Eagle's Nest, and I don't know much about some unwritten rules inside SHIELD. What's the situation now? Have you figured out the weak point of this magic barrier, or the way to enter Westview Town? Sorry, sir. We still have no way to find the weak point of the magic barrier covering Westview Town that you said.
While leading Natasha Romanoff, Suche and others to the direction of the RV tent, the passerby agent said. However, Dr. Silvig, his assistants and students are conducting research through the entrustment and assignment of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Dr. Silvig. Hearing what the agent said, Thor, who was holding a hammer, suddenly said, "So, Jane is also here?" "Hi, Jane." "Hi, Thor." Looking at Thor in front of him, Jane Foster ran over with a smile. In fact, Jane Foster has always had a crush on Thor, but at the beginning, Thor already had a girlfriend. Still, Jane Foster was thrilled to see Thor here. Just when running in front of Thor, Jane Foster didn't know how to express her excitement. "So I could only smile awkwardly. Long time no see, Thor. How are you doing now?" "Not bad." Looking at Jane Foster in front of him, Thor twirled the hammer in his hand and said, "I have made many friends with righteous hearts on the earth, and saved the earth once. It's fun to be with them and make money. By the way, I am now saving money to fulfill Doris' wish, which is to travel around the world and see all the beautiful scenery on the earth." Hearing Thor mention Doris, Jane Foster hesitated for a moment, then said softly, "About Doris, I really feel sorry." Yes. In Jane Foster's memory, Doris was so gentle and kind, beautiful and kind-hearted. Really fits well with Thor. Even if I like Thor, but when I see Doris and Thor together. Apart from envy and blessings, himself can't afford even the slightest bit of jealousy. After all, she is so good, unfortunately. It's okay. Maybe it's just like Doris said, many things are just fate. Shrugging his shoulders, Thor smiled and said, "But I'm very content to have her for a short period of time. By the way, how are you doing now?" Looking at Jane Foster, Thor asked with a smile. "Not far away." Watching Thor and Jane Foster chatting,
Tony Stark shrugged his shoulders and said to Suche, who was beside him, "Dude, I always feel that these two people look at each other very differently."
"You said, would Thor like a girl from Earth? Why, I feel unbalanced in my heart, thinking that girls from the Earth can only be given to people from the Earth." Before Suche could speak, Natasha Romanoff joked with a smile. "It's not." Facing Natasha Romanoff's ridicule, Tony Stark shook his head and said, "I just think that, according to Thor, he is now 1500 years old.
As for the Protoss with that kind of godhead, the general lifespan is at least 5,000 years old."
God. 5,000 years old. This is simply unimaginable. Okay. The lifespan of our Earthlings is at most more than 100 years, and they can also summer. If Thor was with a girl on Earth, and the two had been married for decades, Thor would still be this handsome guy, but her wife would have become an old woman. The handsome Thor calls an old woman his wife every day. The picture is unimaginable. Listening to Tony's words, he smiled because of Tony's armor shoulder. Instead, Steve looked at Tony helplessly. "Kong man Steve, don't look at me like that. I definitely didn't mean to be sarcastic this time." Looking at Steve's helpless eyes, Tony spread his hands and said, "At least, I won't use this to satirize Aunt Petunia, okay? Okay, Tony. Come here and see if you can analyze the magic barrier covering Westview Town." I reached out and touched the barrier, and found that the magic barrier was like a translucent wall. Even though, this guy was created by the system. But Suche still felt a little surprised. After all, the guys created by the system are stronger than each other. And even I don't know how to break this magic barrier. No problem. Hearing Suche's words, Tony Stark directly asked Jarvis to start scanning. A moment later, listening to Jarvis's reply, Tony Stark frowned, and then said to everyone, "Everyone, step back." Hearing what Tony said, Suche and the others took a step back. Then I saw Tanya Stark controlling the armor to fly up, and then directly used the palm energy to attack the magic barrier in the air. Boom. Accompanied by the palm energy cannon attacking the magic barrier. Not only did the solid magic barrier not suffer any damage, but it instantly engulfed the energy that Tony radiated. It's like throwing a stone into a lake. It's just that this lake didn't have the slightest ripples, it just swallowed the stones silently. Sure enough. Seeing this scene, Tony landed slowly in his battle armor and said to everyone, "I just asked Favis to analyze this so-called magic barrier. According to the analysis of JARVIS, this is a barrier created by a special energy. JARVIS can't analyze what kind of energy it is. Maybe it's like the magic Sue mentioned. However, this magic barrier has a ripple that cannot be seen by the naked eye, and it seems to be able to absorb any form of attack. So I just tried it and found that my palm energy cannon was absorbed. Speaking of this, Tony Stark put his hands together and put his mouth. Hey, handsome guy of Asgard, you use lightning energy to hit this barrier. While speaking, Tony Stark stretched out his hand and put the palm of the battle armor on the magic barrier. At the same time, let JARVIS continue to scan and analyze. Thor, who was chatting with Jane Foster, heard Tony calling himself. He smiled at Jane and said, I'll go there first. My partners need me. Okay. Looking at Thor, Jane Foster nodded with a smile. Maybe you have a way to find out what this is. Anyway, we use various instruments, but we still can't analyze it. Smiling at Jane Foster, Thor swung his hammer and flew into the sky, then summoned a bolt of lightning that struck the magic barrier directly. Crack. The violent lightning struck the magic barrier, and the imagined shattering of the barrier did not appear. But Tony, who stuck the palm of his battle armor on the magic barrier, instantly withdrew his body. Sure enough, as I guessed, this magic barrier does not completely absorb the energy of the attack. Instead of being attacked, the attack power is distributed to every corner of the barrier. In this way, the entire magic barrier will be completely flattened by the attack, and the barrier will not be broken by a strong attack. According to the law of physical conservation, if you want to break this magic barrier, you need a very, very strong attack power. Having said that, Tony Stark looked at everyone and said, this magic barrier is not invincible and indestructible, so everyone, we will be busy next. Tony was busy talking. It is indeed busy. It's just that the way of being busy is slightly different from Suche's imagination. Like, evening, before the bonfire. Haha, this is the fine wine I brought from Asgard, you people on Earth can't bear it at all. Facing Thor's arrogance, Natasha Romanoff turned to look at Barton, who was obviously drunk at the moment. Then he pushed Suche. He is too arrogant, go, Sue, bring Thor down. Haha, put me down. Hiccup. After hiccuping, Thor watched Suche slapping the table arrogantly. Dude, everyone says you are the strongest Avenger, come on, I'm going to challenge you today. Listening to Thor's arrogant laugh, Tony immediately picked up the wine glass and stuffed it into Suche's hand. Dude, don't be afraid, come with him. Steve, you, as the reserve team. I don't believe I can't tell Thor today. Seeing Tony booing, Steve on the side also rolled up his sleeves with a smile and walked to Suche's side. Thor is just too arrogant. In front of a long table, each person has 5 beers and put them there. And at the end of the beer, there is a glass of spirits from Asgard. Rolling up the sleeves of his shirt, Suche stood opposite Thor and said, Dude, don't you know that I've never been drunk? If I get drunk and call my mother later, I'm not responsible for coaxing you. Ha! Earthlings who talk big. It started with a shout from Natasha Romanoff. In the next second, the two of them picked up the draft beer mugs at the same time and began to drink the beer quickly. In almost a few seconds, the two drank the first glass of draft beer at the same time, and then picked up the second glass of draft beer without stopping. And the surrounding SHIELD agents cheered for the two of them. At this moment, there was a lot of excitement in front of the bonfire, as if it was a bonfire party. If they do this, they won't hurt the team's peace before the announcement. Watching Suche and Thor pick up the fourth glass of beer and drank it quickly, Jane Foster frowned. Isn't that good? On the contrary, I think the cruel words just said to each other are quite cute. Facing Jane Foster's words, Daisy folded her arms and stared at Suche with her slender neck upturned. God. Which one is my favorite? It's a master. The older Dr. Silvig smiled and watched Suche and Thor fight for a drink, and a large group of people booing around. If you're getting older, don't get involved with them. After all, I was also responsible for monitoring the signal segment provided by Tony to find out the weak points of the magic barrier. As for the members of the Avengers Alliance, don't they feel a little tense now? Is there something wrong? Hey, before going to the battlefield, are you still not allowed to drink a glass of wine? Zila. Watching the long string in your hand dripping grease constantly under the charcoal fire. Natasha Romanoff took a look. Well, it's done. Picking up the grilled meat skewers and coming to Suche, these two guys have already drank their 12th draft beer. Wow. Delicious meat skewers, Natasha Romanoff, are you going to give it to me? Looking at the meat skewers in Natasha Romanoff's hands, Tony's eyes lit up. Come on. Thor was so arrogant just now that you didn't even play. If you want to eat, go roast yourself. Even though he said so, Natasha Romanoff still handed Tony and Steve and Dr. Banner on the side a string. Wow. Natasha Romanoff, this is so heartbreaking. Sniffing the aroma of charcoal from the meat skewers, Tony shrugged his shoulders and said, although I'm not a rookie in the wine market, but after all, I'm an ordinary person when I take off my battle lights. Isn't it embarrassing for me to be an ordinary person to drink with perverts like Thor and Suche? Ha, you also know? Then you were so arrogant just now? Looking sideways at Tony. Just counting this product made the loudest booing. Hey, in the words of Sujiajia, this is called losing without losing. Regardless of whether you can win or not, you can't lose your momentum, right? Ignoring the talkative Tony, Natasha Romanoff turned to look at Dr. Banner. Aren't you going to fight Thor? Me? Hee, I'm fine. Quickly waving his hands, Dr. Banner looked confidently at the two guys who finished their beer and picked up the last glass of Asgard at the same time. I don't want Hulk to come out and make trouble after I'm drunk, so I don't want to let Thor do the drinking thing. As Dr. Banner's voice fell, Suche and Thor raised their glasses almost simultaneously. Haha, Thor, you lost. It was Subi who showed the wine glass first in 10 seconds. Tony, who was staring at the scene all the time, saw this scene and immediately sneered at Thor. Is this the prince from Asgard? Haha, in front of the most powerful superhero on our planet, it is simply vulnerable. Facing Tony Stark's taunt, Thor staggered a bit, then pointed to Tony and said, damn Stark, come fight me for a round if you have the ability. Ha, with the most powerful superhero on our planet here, it's not my turn to come out. Damn it. What's the point of having a sharp mouth? Hiccup, Sue, we're fighting for a round. Hey, just come. Who is afraid of whom? While speaking, Thor staggered, and even Sudi's pace was a little unsteady. Seeing this scene, Steve and Natasha Romanoff hurriedly stepped forward and said with a smile, okay, you two are tied. As he spoke, Steve cast a look at Natasha Romanoff, signaling Suche and Thor to help him back. No, I'm not drunk yet, I'm Thor Odinson from God's domain. Okay, you are Thor Odinson, Prince of Asgard. While coaxing, Tiff helped Thor to the tent. Beside Natasha Romanoff also helped Suche into the tent. Seeing the staggering two being helped back, Tony Stark spread his hands to Dr. Banner and said, it seems that these two guys can't do it either. Clint also drank too much, let's help him back too. Just let the three of them sleep together, I think there will be a special surprise tomorrow morning. Listening to Tony's words, Dr. Banner smiled, and then he and Tony walked towards the tent together with Clint Barton, who was already drunk. Inside the tent, Sue and Thor were staggering after being helped in. The moment he entered the tent, his eyes immediately returned to clarity. Natasha Romanoff and Steve also let go of their supporting arms as if they knew it a long time ago. Will Tony's plan work? Going to the seat and sitting down, Thor looked at several people and asked, the guy who made the magic barrier, really will come and attack us when Sue and I are drunk? Yes, everything that just happened was intentional by the Avengers. The bonfire party and the wine fight are all fake. No one can have a party and drink before this kind of thing is clear. This is Tony's attention, since it is temporarily impossible to find the weak point where the attacker created the magic energy barrier, and thus entered Shicheng Town. Then find a way to bring it out. Although I don't know how powerful that attacker ability is. But in the face of the Avengers alliance that has just saved the world, even this assailant with magical abilities must be vigilant. And wasn't the original target of the attackers the members of the Avengers alliance? That being the case, give him a chance. That's Tony's plan. An arrogant Avengers alliance team who just saved the world and doesn't care about anything is easy to beat. Barton, who was originally helped in, returned to normal the moment he entered the tent. I just observed the surrounding area while I was drunk, but unfortunately, I didn't find any abnormalities. If the attacker wants to take advantage of our slack to attack us, then tonight is undoubtedly the best choice. Having said that, Barton began to organize his arrows. Another thing to say is, if possible, then I really hope that this matter can be ended quickly. After all, the past half-month has been busy cleaning up Hydra in S.H.I.E.L.D. My wife Laura is almost a week away from her due date, and I don't have time to spend with her. Hearing what Barton said, everyone immediately stood up and hugged Barton to express their congratulations. As the only member of the Avengers Alliance who has a family and is about to have a child, Barton is really very enviable. If possible, I would like to be the baby's godmother. Hugging Barton, Tasha said with a smile, "Definitely, even if you don't say it, the child's godmother will definitely be you." Blinking at Natasha Romanoff, Barton looked at the crowd and said, "Everyone, I've switched over all the surveillance cameras around Westview Town and are monitoring them in real time. Let's see if the attacker can hold back tonight. Clint, why don't you go back and spend time with your wife first?" Looking at Barton, Tony Stark said seriously, "Believe me, your wife needs you more than we do at this time. And we are not Nick Fury, the guy whose heart is black. How can we bear to continue in this situation? Where is the elf prince who crushed us?" "That's right, I also agree with Nee's statement." Steve and Barton hugged, and then said seriously, "This is your first child, Clint, you should be by your wife's side." "Sorry, we didn't know the news in advance, otherwise we will never trouble you this time." "Yeah, Clint, go back and be with you, Laura, we're still here." Listening to everyone's words, Barton smiled, but did not agree. "It's okay. Laura will understand me, and the due date is about a week away. Let's try to get rid of this damn guy before her due date. After all, we are a team." The reason why Clint Barton wants to stay here is because Barton has taken over all the monitoring equipment in Westview Town. If there is any problem, then he will find out immediately. If it was before, Barton would definitely not be like this. But this time it was different. Because the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in charge here, the tallest is actually a passer-by rookie. Although compared to ordinary people, these rookies are also very powerful. But these rookies who have just come out of the eagle's nest are still far behind. Seeing Barton's insistence, everyone stopped trying to persuade him. Even Tony took out his laptop and began to seriously analyze the magic barrier. At this moment, everyone's only thought is to get rid of that damn bastard as soon as possible and restore Shichang Town to its normal state. At the very least, Barton can't miss out on his big daddy moment. Tony's plan is to cast all the Avengers Alliance members and make the attacker think that the Avengers Alliance just saved the world, and the team spirit is very slack at the moment. Then it attracted him to attack people like himself. The plan is good, it just didn't work out. Until late at night, no one was attacked. It was past 1 o'clock in the morning. Barton, who had closed his eyes to rest his mind, opened them instantly, and then took out his slightly vibrating cell phone to take a look. "I found that I was in a monitoring position outside Zhijing Town, and there seemed to be some changes. The focal length of the camera seems to have changed a bit." The discovery made Barton jump out of bed and send a text message to the rest of the Avengers Alliance. Then he picked up the bow and arrow and rushed towards the camera a few miles away. Take advantage of the night to come to the camera position where the focal length changes. Barton checked the surroundings, but found nothing unusual. Then he was about to squat down and check his hidden camera. Just squatting down, but suddenly noticed something abnormal. Rolling forward without any hesitation, he drew out the bow and arrow neatly and pointed it behind him. "Wow, the action is really clean and neat. Hey, relax, I don't have any malicious intentions." With a familiar smile on his face, Loki raised his hands and looked at Clint Barton. "Actually, your plan is pretty good, but Thor's acting is too fake. A dozen beers and a glass of fine wine from Asgard can get him drunk. I have to say, Thor's acting skills are really bad. Tisk, as a brother, I will take his place." Before he could finish speaking, Barton's arrow flew directly at Loki. Again. Tilting his head to avoid the arrow, Loki said seriously to Barton, "Stop your arrow that symbolizes fate, man. Once again, I have no malicious intentions." Just after taking a step forward, Lu Ji immediately turned his head and looked behind him. There was no one behind him, but at this moment, other members of the Avengers Alliance were staring at him. "Wow, look who it is." It turned out to be a certain Bambi who just failed. "I really can't imagine that such a big scene was actually created by you. Why, you want to invade our Earth again?" The palm energy cannon was aimed at Loki, and Tony Stark joked, But this time, you don't seem to have that scepter of fate. Loki. Looking at Loki standing in front of him, Thor stepped forward angrily. Damn it, did you make all of this? Yes, Thor is really angry. Unexpectedly, Loki, who escaped, did not give up, and was ready to cause turmoil on the earth again. Facing the angry expression at this moment, Loki did not have the usual sarcasm and banter. Instead, he smiled with tears in his eyes. Long time no see, my brother. Thor is dumbfounded. Thor, who was still aggressive and ready to settle accounts with Loki. Facing Loki's affectionate call to himself at this moment, especially the look of tears in his smile, Thor became bewildered. He'd seen Loki with a playful look. Seen Loki stabbing himself viciously. I've seen Loki, too, overwhelmed by rage. Even Loki, who talks back to his father, has seen it himself. However, it was the first time Thor saw Loki in this state. He actually cried. As this still the second prince of Asgard, Loki, who has always been known for his elegance. And, what the hell is long time no see? It's been less than 20 days since his mother let him leave with the space gem. Why has it been so long since I saw you? Damn, this isn't Loki up to another plot, is it? Wait. Where's his favorite piece of leather from Asgard? How did it turn into such ordinary clothes? And what does the TVA printed on it mean? But before Thor could ask, Su-Che suddenly stepped forward, staring at the words TVA on Loki's clothes. Time administration? You know, that's great, so I don't have to waste too much time. In the face of Su-Che, he said the name of the time administration in one mouthful, and the tears in Loki's eyes gradually disappeared. Seeing Su-Che spread his hands, he said, sorry, the battle in New York has had a very bad influence on you, but thank you very much for your presence. At least the universe that owns you, the endless man Kong, who is the same body as the leftovers, dare not be too presumptuous. Speaking of this, a decorative bracelet on Loki's wrist suddenly flickered. Mobius is looking for me, so I'm running out of time, and he and Hilway can only support me for a short time. Sue, in the series of events I experienced, I once sought your support in the parallel universe, but it is a pity that there is no figure or equivalent of you in the other 10 parallel universes. And the superhero of the third universe is a guy named Spider-Man, and there are no equivalents of the other Avengers Alliance members. In addition, although TVA marked you as a major time offender, they dare not do anything to you, including the guy who claims to be the leftover. However, before the survivor Kong died, he once said that Kong Jui would send someone to contact you, so be careful, and don't be fooled by them. Loki speaks faster and faster. At the same time, he stretched out his hand to use magic, and took out a small box out of thin air and handed it to Su-Che. You can definitely use this at a critical moment. After all, there are so many time bureaus in this thing. The other thing is, if you can, don't stop that guy from Star Titan from snapping his fingers, although the consequence of this is that some people will disappear for a few years. But at least the Earth has avoided the appearance of God appearance. You must remember that you must be alert to anyone who approaches you with malicious intentions. We can't see you in the future of this universe through the Time Management Bureau. Although the future of this universe was already doomed, from the moment you came, the original future will never appear again. Sue, in the future that hasn't happened yet, you may be the last hope for all of us, including many parallel universes. After finishing speaking, looking at the bracelet on his wrist, the red light was blinking faster and faster at this moment. Loki took a deep breath, and then said to the other confused people, I don't have much time, I hope Hilvi and Mobius can hold on. Finally looking at Thor, Loki had a twinkle in his eyes. Goodbye my brother, I hope the next time I see you. Before he finished speaking, Loki's body turned into a spot of light and began to dissipate. Loki. Watching Loki turn into ashes, Thor's eyes widened instantly. He stretched out his hand, but in the end he didn't catch anything. In an instant, Loki disappeared directly, and all around was quiet. The wind blew slowly late at night, and a chill swept through the entire night. Silence shrouded the night sky, as if nothing happened just now. Just 10 minutes later, Tent C. Sue. What is going on here? What is the time administration? Everyone looked at Su-Che, wondering what Loki meant when he said a lot of things they didn't understand. Also, parallel universes? Is there really such a concept? Everyone looked at Su-Che curiously, only Natasha Romanoff remained silent. She remembered a sentence written by Su Che in the Black Gold Diary just after she got it. That is, Su once searched for it, but this universe doesn't have Su's equivalent. As Loki said just now, there is no equivalent of Su in another parallel universe. Even the third universe he went to, even the other divisions of the members of the Avengers Alliance did not exist. There is only one superhero called Spider-Man. If that's the case, then it all makes sense. The universe Su originally lived in was destroyed, and then he went to this universe and found that this universe did not have him. And other universes do not have Su Che counterparts either. Strange? This is not surprising, after all. Loki went to the third universe. There are no other members of the Avengers Alliance yet. As for what Loki said just now, the legacy of Kong and Kang's meeting. Damn it. This should be what led to the destruction of the parallel universe that Su used to be in, Kong the Conqueror. Thinking of, Natasha Romanoff looked at Su Che. I found that Su Che's expression was not very good at the moment. I thought it was what Loki said just now, which made Su Che think of the parallel universe he was in once again. Then with a very heavy heart, he immediately said, "Everyone, it's very late now, although we all want to know the truth and what Loki means. But I suggest that it is best to wait until the incident in Shixia town. Let's talk after it's over." Saying that, Natasha Romanoff quietly kicked Steve beside him. Steve, who was kicked, also reacted immediately. After all, Su had told him that he was not from this universe. The parallel universe he lived in has been completely destroyed. Thinking of this, facing Natasha Romanoff's rescue, Steve also stood up. "Everyone, I agree with what Natasha Romanoff said. Let's go, don't disturb Su's rest." Said it all to Natasha Romanoff and Steve. It's not easy for people to ask any more questions. Even Thor, who really wants to know what's going on. They all nodded and got up, and left the tent with everyone. Damn it, what happened to Loki these few days when he disappeared? Why did he talk so much to Su? You know, he is his brother. Is there anything I can't tell myself? As everyone left, Su Che sat on a chair and took out the box Loki gave him. Shake the box slightly and listen to the sound inside the box. Combined with what Loki said, there are many time bureau. If there are no accidents, it should be infinity treasure. Sure enough, as the box was opened, 6 infinite gems emitting light lay quietly inside the box. It's just that there is a transparent partition in the middle of each infinite gems, which seems to prevent infinite gems from colliding with each other. Close the box and place the box containing 6 infinite gems in the system space. Then he began to think about what Loki said to himself. Loki has been captured by the Time Administration? This corresponds to the fact that after the New York War, the Avengers returned from the Avengers Alliance through time and space, and then Loki took the opportunity to take the space gem and escape. But obviously, it's not hard to draw conclusions from what Loki said. That is, the future of this universe has not happened yet. At least that's the case in the timeline I'm in. Huh? Doesn't that mean that this breaks the closed time loop and forms a new concept of the future? Just like the Mobius ring built by Tony Stark. It's just that because of his own appearance, the Mobius ring was suddenly broken, thus forming a new branch. Therefore, I have become the most important time criminal of the Time Management Bureau in Loki's mouth. However, the Time Management Bureau did not dare to do anything to him, let alone arrest him. Another point is that Loki should have seen what would have happened in this universe in the Time Management Bureau, as well as his original fate of being pinched and broken by Thanos. It's just corresponding to Loki's short play. Where is his node in the Time Management Bureau? Words spoken by those left behind before they died. And Hilvi teaming up with Mobius to buy him time? So, the plot in the original, Loki backquote, is almost over. Although Loki has only disappeared for a short 10 days, the time flow rate of the Time Management Bureau is different from the time flow rate in the universe. Then what kind of fate will happen to Loki next? I don't know at all. Most importantly, Loki said. The group of guys in Kongji's meeting had already set their eyes on him. That's why Loki came here to remind himself, don't be fooled. Hey. It's really getting more and more interesting. At least, Su Che likes this kind of unknown things happening in a known time node. It's like what's happening inside Westview Town now. I also don't know. After all, the enemies created by the system originally have their own will. Never mind. Don't think so much anymore. If you want to confuse yourself, you must find yourself. Come on then. It just so happens that I also want to see what kind of abilities those so-called Kong will have in the finale of the 5th stage that I have never seen in the future. Although I also like the convenience of controlling the overall situation and knowing what will happen in the future. But the real strong will never be afraid of challenges. Well, quickly resolve the matter of Westview Town, and then increase the number of Black Gold Diaries. I really want to know who the next holder of the Black Gold Diary will be. At the same time, Land of the Void. Come back? Have you finished warning the superhero named Sue? Seeing Loki coming back, Mobius asked Loki with a smile. I don't know if he will believe it, but he actually knows the existence of the Time Administration. And from the pictures seen by the Time Administration, no one knows that he appeared from that destroyed universe. Having said that, Lu Ji turned his head and looked at Tilvi next to him. Thank you. What? Hearing Loki's words, Hill Wei was slightly surprised, but he shrugged his shoulders indifferently. Isn't this to deal with those bastards? So you can go to Earth for you, no need to thank you. That's not what I said. Facing Hill's indifference, Loki stretched out his hand and smiled for a second. But in the next second, a dagger appeared in the originally empty hand, and then it stabbed Hill Wei's abdomen viciously. Subconsciously, he looked at the dagger that suddenly pierced his abdomen, and Kurenai raised his head to look at Loki in disbelief. You know, in Asgard, I am known as the god of jest and trickery. He drew out the dagger, and kicked Hill Wei, who was clutching his stomach and bleeding, to the ground. A smile flashed across Loki's face. I am the only one who deceives, and no one has ever been able to deceive me. How dare you use this little trick in front of me? Tisk, you really look down on me, the #1 magician in the 9 realms. As Loki's voice fell, Hill, who had fallen to the ground, gradually revealed his original appearance. Looking at the guy who gradually turned into a black man, and then wanted to say something in pain, but finally lost his vital signs. Mobius snorted in disgust, then turned his head to Loki and said, You have long discovered that this Hill dimension is fake. Definitely. Shaking the blood stained on the dagger, Loki put the dagger away. Hill Wei and I have already dispersed in Kong, although I know that Hill Wei must be looking for me. But it's absolutely impossible to find me so soon. The most important thing is that his transformation technique is simply too low-end. Doesn't he know that I am the master of transformation technique? It's full of loopholes. Listening to Loki's words, watching Loki put away the dagger neatly, Mobius shook his head. Then you should tell me earlier, it's a pity that I still trust her so much during this time. Come on, it's hard to stabilize the time frame by you alone, you have to deal with him after you've used him up, don't you? Smiling, he patted on Mobius's arm. Loki took a deep breath, then smiled and said, Let's go buddy, let's continue our journey. However, I really want to pull Sura into this endless adventure. At least with him here, many things will be much more convenient. Facing Loki's emotion, Mobius shrugged his shoulders. When you appeared in front of them, it was already a shame for him not to catch you immediately. After all, according to the timeline of the universe you are in, you have just led the Chitauri to invade Earth. Forget it. Hearing Mobius talk about this, Loki rubbed his neck subconsciously. I don't want to experience the thing of being pinched and broken by that Titan Thanos. But having said that, now that the Time Management Bureau is ruined, can I do whatever I want? Actually, I still really want to go back, he said. Early morning. Found it. Listening to Jane Foster's excited voice from outside. Everyone in the Avengers walked out of the tent immediately. I found that the energy of the same frequency as this barrier fluctuates. Looking at the crowd of Avengers, Jane Foster held the laptop and said excitedly, According to Mr. Stark's scan data, Daisy and I have been analyzing the structure and composition of the barrier. However, it's a pity that we can't analyze the structure of the barrier, but we can change the direction to study the fluctuation of the barrier. Contrast that with the wave spikes caused by Thor's summoning of lightning to attack the barrier yesterday when you came here. I discovered the energy fluctuation of the barrier. Looking at the crowd, Jane Foster excitedly said, That is to say, when the barrier is attacked, it will evenly share the energy of the hit and cover the entire barrier in Westview Town, so as to ensure that the barrier able not to be rushed. But, you come with me. With that said, Jane Foster led everyone all the way to the other side of the barrier. It should be here. Pointing at the magic barrier here, Jane Foster said seriously. Although not everything can be explained by science, Science can be used to find loopholes in events. As long as this barrier continues to be attacked, then this will be the weakest part of the barrier. Maybe you can enter Westview Town from here. However, at the moment of being attacked, the weakest part of the barrier is limited, and it may only last for a few seconds. Hearing Jane Foster's words, everyone looked at each other. I think I can try it. A few seconds is enough. Looking at the crowd, Thor held the hammer and said, I trust Jane's analysis. Facing Thor's words, everyone nodded. Natasha Romanoff took out the communicator and said to the passerby-level rookie agent, Bell, prepare the small missile. Wait for my order to launch the magic barrier in Zigao Town at any time. Yes, sir. Listening to Natasha Romanoff's order from the communicator. The passerby shield agent named Bell immediately asked his men to prepare small missiles. Wait until everything is ready. Jane Foster immediately controlled the computer and started crackling to complete the final calculation. After calculation, it only takes about 5 seconds. When the missile attacks the magic barrier, you need to attack this weak point at the same time. Under the interlacing of the two energies, there will be a blank period of about 5 seconds that allows you to enter Westview Town. 5 seconds. Enough. Turning his head to look at the crowd, Suche said, Tony, the energy of your palm in the missiles from shield attack at the same time. Wait until the channel opens during the 5-second blank period, and everyone in the Avengers Alliance enters together. No problem. Hearing Suche's instruction, everyone was ready in an instant. Seeing the palm of Tony's battle armor light up, Natasha Romanoff immediately pressed the communicator headset. Bell, start attacking. Following Natasha Romanoff's order, 2 small missiles were launched instantly. The moment the missile hit the magic barrier in the air, the energy of Tony's armor also instantly hit the weak point. In just a split second, 2 streams of energy detonated directly on the magic barrier. And the barrier that was originally so gray that it was impossible to see the interior of Zhejiang Town, gradually appeared a crack that could only accommodate one person's file size and began to spread. It's now. Watching the crack channel open, and it may close at any time. Su Che took the lead in entering through the crack channel. After that, the others didn't have the slightest hesitation, and all chose to go in with the withdrawal of the Soviet Union. In just a few seconds, after Tony Stark entered the barrier channel for the last time. The crack channel was closed in an instant, and it returned to the original gray and invisible appearance. Be careful. Watching everyone enter Westview Town, Jane Foster didn't even have time to say be careful. There was only a flash of worry. Hopefully, Thor and the others will be all right. Inside Westview. What the hell place? Outside the magic barrier, the sky was azure, and the surroundings were full of vitality. But entered the interior of Zhejiang Town. The sky at this moment is gray, and ashes like burning paper are constantly falling around. When you look up, you can't see Tiantian at all. It seems that the whole town is shrouded in a layer of mystery. Even Hawkeye, with the best eyesight, cannot see clearly beyond 10 meters in front of him. Damn it, this reminds me of a horror movie I once saw. It seems to be called The Mist, or something. I even suspect that there are some dangerous monsters full of fangs hidden in this thick fog. Tony Stark looked around, and then complained. But in the next second, a monster's roar suddenly came from the mist. Before everyone could get ready, a 2-meter-tall giant wolf with a mouth full of sharp fangs charged at them with a bloody smell. Seeing this scene, Su Che stood in front of everyone for the first time, then raised his fist and slammed it heavily on the head of the giant wolf. This prevents it from jumping at others behind it. At the same time, Natasha Romanoff immediately raised his pistol and kept shooting at the giant wolf. Punched heavily on the head by Su Che, the bloodthirsty giant wolf staggered back several meters with its body crooked. But Natasha Romanoff's bullet hit the giant wolf's head as if it hit an iron plate. Didn't have any effect at all. He shook his dizzy head from Su Che's punch. The giant wolf with its mouth full of fangs suddenly raised its head, and roared furiously at Su Che. A pair of cold, biting eyes also began to metamorphosis gradually turn into a bloodthirsty red. Roar. Accompanied by a roar of huge amounts of, the giant wolf jumped into the air in an instant, and the sharp claws that seemed to be able to tear apart all prey, swung at everyone without any hesitation. Before the sharp claws of the bloodthirsty giant wolf could attack everyone, the next second, The green giant who turned into a Hulk because of the appearance of the giant wolf roared angrily at him. He rushed out without any hesitation, raised his huge fist and smashed at the giant wolf. Boom. Crack. With one man and one wolf fighting together, the sound of bones breaking appeared in everyone's ears. Holding the hammer and looking around vigilantly, Thor said to the crowd, "Everyone, no one knows what else is in this fog. So everyone must be careful. I don't want to see a huge amounts of lizards suddenly appear from nowhere and swallow everyone."